Welcome to Reco12. My name is Lisa.S and I have the disease of alcoholism. We'll begin with a moment's silence for the still suffering addict inside and outside of the rooms, followed by the we version of a set-aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside anything we think we know about ourselves, about our disease, about the big book, the 12 steps, the program, the fellowship, the people in the fellowship, and all spiritual terms, especially you, God, so that we may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help us to see the truth. We surrender this next hour to you. Your will, not ours, be done. Amen. So I'm very blessed to be the host of this meeting and podcast that's in the Afro-Euro time zones. I hope that you'll join us and draw strength and hope from these podcasts that we will host Fridays at 8 a.m. UK time and 10 a.m. European South Africa time. Reco12 is an organisation with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We come together from all places, faiths and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others. Speakers from our past meetings have represented many fellowships, addictions and afflictions. We look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds, and I hope you'll reach out if you think your experience, strength and hope will benefit this special community. Today's speaker is Angela J, who will be speaking for around 30 minutes or however long you feel comfortable with. We'll get her to share, followed by Q&A afterwards. First, for some business, the Reco12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and has more and more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. Reco12 shares and a couple of other super exciting projects. One we have is the Big Book Roundtable discussion, where a few speak, and there's Nikki M with the Noodle It Out. All the details will be put in the chat or on the Reco12 online resources. Tradition 7, Reco12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our step 12 in this manner. We gratefully accept one-time contributions through PayPal, Venmo and Wise through the links in the chat. We also offer a monthly subscription program called Reco12 Spearheads. To join in and help support these cool projects, please consider donating at www.reco12.com/support, or you can click on the link in the live chat of this meeting. We look forward each meeting to growing deeper in effectiveness and understanding as we learn from and with our special speakers. Today, we are very blessed to learn and grow with Angela, who's going to share on the topic of family. So over to you, Angela.
Thank you very much, Lisa. My name's Angela and I'm an alcoholic. And it's a privilege to be asked to be here as well. And I always like to think of this as, we talk about service within the fellowships and yes, sharing's part of that service. But for me, carrying that message across to other people is just a blessing. It really, really is, because I was always so ashamed of my past. I could not be honest about where I'd been and what I'd done and anything like that. And that humiliation was just ingrained in us. It was just deep rooted. And, I look back on it, my sobriety date's the 19th of April, 2007. So I'll be coming up 19 year in a couple of months, and I didn't think I could get to 19 minutes, never mind 19 year. It is just mind blown that I have gotten this far in recovery, but I never ever lose sight of the fact that I didn't do this. This wasn't me that got me sober. It was God that got me sober. Whether you have a higher power, God, it's irrelevant what you call him, but I know that I have been on one of the most precious spiritual journeys ever, and I really have. And I picked the topic family because throughout my life, family has been hugely important. It really, really has. And everybody does. We all, you know, whether that be in a good way or a bad way, it's always been a big factor of my life. And I look back at, I can remember when I first came in and reading the doctor's opinion, and I was going through step one and sitting with my sponsor, and he was about 21 year at the time, and, you know, reading through the doctor's opinion. And one of the things that stuck out to me was where it says, if any feel that a psychiatrist directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us. While on the firing line, see the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work, and even their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. And I can remember reading that, and this is where my head was at the time, looking at the despairing wives and the little children, and I thought, well, why are they? Why are they saying that? What do they mean, despairing wives? I'm the one who's the alcoholic. I'm the one who's gone through all the pain and the suffering and blah, blah, blah. And it's not until I get to grips with step one and understand this disease concept that I realized that I didn't have a problem. I had a solution. Alcohol and drugs became my solution. They were always my solution because they took everything away. Our families don't have the privilege of that. They don't have anything to take all that away. We watch these people that we love killing themselves, just torturing themselves. And, you know, talks about that in the doctor's opinion on the other page about alcoholic torture. And I can, you know, I had a really, really good upbringing. I never had any trauma in my past. There was no issue in my childhood. It was absolutely beautiful. I had loving parents. I had a really close family. So when I first came into the rooms and I used to hear all these tragic stories and the awful, so, you know, what some people have gone through, I used to think, well, you're telling us to listen for the similarities and I'm not finding them. I couldn't find the similarities. And I wasn't listening to the internal. I didn't realize that this is an internal job. I'm still listening to all the external because I'm brand new. I don't understand it. And I went back out. That was in 2001. And I came back into the fellowship in 2006. I went into rehab and then eventually got sober in 2007. And I've never touched a drink or drug since then. And I often tell the story of throughout my progression, should we say, it was tragic. You know, there was lots of issues, and I had the two girls. I had two daughters, and they were removed from us because I couldn't be a mum. It was just impossible. There was no way I could be a mother. And I used to sit in meetings, and women would be crying and upset and saying, you know, I've lost my children and I miss them and did. And I didn't have that. I used to think, well, I was relieved. And that's my truth. I was relieved when the children were removed from us because I thought I was hopeless with responsibility. I was hopeless with accountability. I didn't want any of that. So when you remove the children, there's my responsibility gone. The only thing I was responsible for was making sure that I had drinking drugs, and that was it. And that's what I wanted. That's where I needed to be at that time. So I went through what loads of people have gone through in addiction, and, you know, losing the children, losing family, you know, family falling out with us. But the one person who always stuck by us was my mum, and I'll never ever forget that. And I look back on that now, and I can see where God's work was because, you know, it didn't matter what happened. She was there. She was always there. She would enable us a lot of the time as well. But then, fortunately for her, but unfortunately for me, she got in touch with a couple of Al-Anon members, and these Al-Anon members taught her about enabling. And I was absolutely furious because that was it. She wouldn't give us money. She wouldn't do anything for us. She was like, right, I love you, but you're on your own. I'm not doing this anymore. And when you have stopped drinking and using, then I'll be there for you. But at this moment in time, your children are more important for me because she had custody of the children. So I absolutely despise these two women that she had met from Al-Anon. But you know what? I wish today that I knew who they were. I never ever found out who they were. But I wish today that I knew who they were because that was the change for me. That was when things started to change. they were the ones that, you know, God put them in, not just my mum's path, he put them in my path as well, because that's when I started to hear about Al-Anon. That's when I started to hear about 12-step. And then a social worker got us into a 12-step rehab, and the story went from there. So as I'm going through my recovery journey, I end up getting me 2 girls back. My oldest one didn't move back in with us. She stayed with me mum, but she was older. She was 16 by the time I finished drinking. And my youngest one, our Olivia, was 8. And I'd met a partner. I had a lovely life. And then I ended up getting one of our grandchildren. He went through a lot of issues with his mum. He wasn't my side of the family, but he was still my grandson. And we ended up getting custody of this little boy. So I'm kind of 3 years sober and think, well, I was about 1.5 years, 2 years at the time, and social services are now coming and asking me to look after this child. And I'm thinking, wow, you took mine off us and now you're giving us a child to look after. What is wrong with you? And you know, I thought it was just insane. But these are the miracles that happen as we go through recovery. So I ended up with custody of this little boy, and it was just mind blowing. And I felt like God was giving us another chance with children. You know, it was like, right, we know you messed up with your own 2, but he's another one. You can have another little boy and we'll see how you go with that. And then lo and behold, a few years later, I get custody of another grandson, my daughter's grandson, and my daughter's son. So then all of a sudden I've got this little 1-year-old boy who's living with us now. So, you know, and I've got these 2 little boys who, by the way, are still with us. You know, one's 15 and one's 9 now. And I've had these 2 little precious little children in my life since then. And I never dreamt in a million years that that's how my life would go. And when I look at it, one of the reasons that I ended up with these 2 little boys as well was down to addiction, was down to, you know, using and drinking. And both my girls ended up addicts. So my oldest daughter, whose son stays with me, she ended up in addiction. And it was just awful. It was really, really awful. And as a mother, I know exactly what my mum went through now, you know, so I've been on both sides of this journey. And so I'm sitting there with a daughter out there in addiction who's, you know, into abusive relationships, going through all this turmoil. It was just awful. But the arguments were horrendous. They were really, really bad. And trying to you know, I'd already gone through the program, and I'm looking at step 12 thinking you've got to practice these principles in all of your affairs. Bring these principles in, bring the principles in. And at that point, that's when the principles became really important to me, because when I went through step 12, I used to look at step 12 as the only part I saw was, I've got to carry this message. I have to carry this message. You know, having had a spiritual awakening, which I'd had, I've now got to go out there and help other alcoholics and addicts. And then it was kind of a full stop. I never used to look at the principle side. I never used to look at how I practice these principles in all of our affairs. And when I looked at the topic family today, I thought, you know, these principles come into, every single principle comes into family without a shadow of a doubt. I use every single principle around my family. So, you know, watching my daughters go through this, a couple of years after that, my youngest daughter started going through addiction as well. And I knew, you know, we always say you can't diagnose somebody else. They have to make their own decision and blah, blah, blah. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt she was going to end up an addict. It was just, our behaviors were there. You know, the actions were there, everything, our emotions were there. I could see it all. And I used to think, you don't know, you don't know, you don't know. I had to keep telling myself, you don't know. But she did end up out there in addiction. And unfortunately, she had diabetes as well. And, you know, she ended up in comas where, you know, I was sat there with doctors telling us we don't think she's going to make it. And, you know, for a mother to sit there and listen to that is just, it's just mind blowing. And one of my favorite defects is denial. I kind of really enjoy denial. I love going into denial because then I don't have to feel anything. And I was in the hospital this time with my daughter with tubes all over her, and the doctor telling us she's not going to survive, or she'd be very lucky if she does. And I'm thinking, right, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I'm not feeling anything. I'm not showing anything. And I was sat at her bedside this day, and it was awful looking at her. And I can remember thinking, if you need to go, just go. And I leant over our bed and I kissed her. I kissed the side of her face and I said, if you need to go, just go. Everything will be all right. If God needs you, just go. And all of a sudden, I just felt calm. I just felt calm. And it was at that point that I realized I was trying to control everything. I was in that control mode. I wanted to control every single thing about their journey. And I knew that day when I leant over that bed that I'd handed over everything to God, that I'd had to rely on God. And that's where that reliance for me came in. And it wasn't for years after. It was years later. She pulled through. How she done it? Well, God done it. God pulled her through. And she shared in a meeting once and she remembered. She couldn't remember anything about being in a coma or being in hospital or anything, but she could remember me saying to her, if you need to go, just go. And it just blew me away. And I'd never ever told her that I'd said that. She told me that she remembered that. And I just thought, wow. And it just proved to me that all these situations in my life have proved that if I put that reliance into God, miracles do happen. They really, really do. I might not get the outcome that I want, but it doesn't matter. He'll give us the outcome that I need. And that changed where my thinking was within the fellowship. And bearing in mind, I was a good few years sober then. So throughout my journey, I look back at when I was 1 year sober and I'm blown away at how I stayed sober. I think, wow, how did you not pick up then? I look at 5 year and I think, how the hell did you get through that? How did you not pick a drink up? I look at 10 year, it's still the same. 15 years, still the same. Because circumstances change us, situations change us, life changes us. But the one thing that's always been consistent throughout my journey is my reliance upon God. And it's just been a blessing that I can't even describe. And it was all down to willingness. It was having that willingness in step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. And I'm always, I'm a massive believer that, willingness without action is just fantasy. That's just me fantasizing. If I'm sitting there saying I'm willing to do something, but I'm not putting any action in, then I'm fantasizing over something. I'm looking for something totally different. So for me, if I ever hear myself say, well, I'm willing to try that, then I know I've got to put some action in. Then I know I've got to do something. So my 2 girls came through, they're both going through this journey of addiction, and I'm in a relationship and I've got 2 boys that I'm looking after and I'm working full time and I could see myself going down this kind of dark place thinking, what is happening? What is going on here? But I didn't leave go of God. I never ever stopped or moved away from God. I just leaned in and kept saying, God, just show me the learning curve. Show me what I'm learning here. Teach us something. Show us what I need to do. And then it was about 3 years ago, I thought, right, I've had enough. I cannot do that. Well, it's 4 years, actually. It's 4 years ago. I just thought, enough's enough. I can't do this anymore. And I kind of cut ties with both my daughters. I just thought, that's it. I need to move away. And and it reminded us of exactly what my mum done with me when she said, I love you, but I'm not doing it anymore. And I was exactly the same with my 2 daughters. And by God, I wish I'd done it years prior to that, but never mind. And from then, everything started to change. So my youngest daughter came into the fellowship. She actually came waltzing into the fellowship, and it was just an absolute blessing. She didn't get clean and sober straight away, but, she did eventually, and she's 4 years coming up now. And, my oldest daughter, she then came into the fellowship as well. And you hear it in the rooms that it's about attraction rather than promotion. And I never, ever once said to my girls, come on, you're coming to a meeting. Come on, you need to get a sponsor. Come on, you need to do the steps. You need to do this. You need to do that. I never once done it. I left them to it. I did not chuck the fellowship or the steps or anything in their faces. And I knew in my head it was always around attraction rather than promotion. And it had to be about willingness for them. It had to be about them seeing the truth in what they were doing and what their lives were like and how things were going now. And they both came into the fellowship. And since then, this journey has just been unbelievable. And I could never have written what was going to happen in my life ever. I could, when I look, if it was 5 years ago and somebody said to me, this, and this is going to happen over the next 5 years, I would absolutely not believe one single word you said at all. I was in a long-term relationship for 17 years. I had 2 grandchildren that I was raising. I had my 2 daughters we were dysfunctional. It was all over. And if somebody said to me, in 5 years' time, you're going to be living on your own with your 2 little boys and your daughters are going to be in the fellowship, you're going to have an amazing relationship, I would have just said, absolutely not a chance, not a chance. But things did change, and all because of God, and looking at what my journey consisted of and where I needed to be. And like I say, I was starting to go down this dark place and thought, this isn't working for me. It really isn't. So ended up kind of moving away from the children, the girls just saying, no, enough's enough. I then realised that I was in a relationship that I shouldn't have been in, that was not working anymore, that wasn't part of my journey. So I left the relationship. I walked out of that relationship with a few black sacks full of clothes. I didn't know where I was going to live, didn't know what was going to happen. I had no home. I had nothing, absolutely nothing. But that night I did have a home. I had a roof over my head. I had furniture. The 2 boys wanted to stay with me, so they came to live with me. And then, as I say, the 2 girls got into recovery, and I look back over that and it's just absolutely changed my life. And I was in the fellowship, I was in a meeting, listening to somebody sharing over, and I'd heard this person share quite a few times, and I'd gone to book studies with them, and I thought, I need what you've got. I need what you've got. But I never done anything about it. And I had the same sponsor for a lot of years. And I spoke to my sponsor and said, I think I need to go back through the steps again. I knew I needed to deal with all this stuff that had gone on. So I'd asked about going back through the steps. He says, no, I'm not taking you through the steps. I says, why? Why would you? I says, I know I need to go through. He says, I agree. I agree. He says, you do need to go through. He says, but you need a new journey. He says, and I can't be on that journey. He says, your journey needs to move now. And I felt devastated. I thought, you can't do that. You've been my sponsor for 17 years. You can't not be my sponsor anymore. He says, you don't need me. You need a new journey, Angela. You need a new experience. He says, and I love you enough to let you go. And I just thought, wow. And I was absolutely past myself. I thought, what am I going to do? And I rang my new sponsor and I said, my sponsor sacked us and I don't know what to do and I need a new sponsor. She said, hang on a minute, what do you mean he sacked you? And I explained what had been said. And she said, I'll take you through the steps. We'll go through. And from then, that was it. Another new journey begins. So last year I went through the steps again. And it has just changed my life 100% again, and I look at this family now and what I have in my life and how it's changed in my life and the closeness that I've got with them 2 girls, this connection that we've got is unbelievable. And one of the things that happened for me, I was 3 years sober and my mum had cancer when I was, for years and years, she had cancer. She was suffering with it for about 18, 19 years. Anyway, when I was 3 years sober, I lost my mum. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever dealt with in recovery. I'm sitting there fairly new, 3 years. And all I kept thinking was, God, stay with us, just stay with us. And it was really, really hard because my mum had always been my best friend. She'd always been the one person that was there for me throughout my whole life. Anyway, we lost that, unfortunately, to cancer, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. And a couple of months after that, we had a very good family friend, Fred. He was just a little angel, bless him. He was lovely, and he was a really good friend of my dad's. And anyway, he'd been found dead. He was murdered. And he was found in his home murdered. And a couple of weeks after, well, it was about a week after that, my brother was actually arrested for his murder. So, and this is 2 months after I've lost my mum. So it was a really kind of raw, emotional time. And I just kept thinking, wow, what is going on here? What is happening here? And then I got summons to court against my brother as a witness against him. And it was just, so most of the family then fell out with me for going against my brother, which I didn't have a choice because I was summoned anyway. And this program had taught me honesty, that I had to be honest when I'd done things. And I did. I was honest as anything. And then a couple of months after that, in the October, me dad collapsed and died. And I just thought, wow, what is going on? It was absolutely mind blown. This level of pain and this level of kind of sadness that was going on. So within a 6-month period, I lost my mum. one of our friends was murdered, my brother was arrested for the murder, and then my dad died. And I look back at that part in my life and think, how on earth did you get through it? How on earth do you get through things like that without picking a drink or a drug up? But you know, the blessing, excuse me, I didn't even think about picking a drink or a drug up. I never once thought, you know what will get you through this. You know, if you have a drink, you'll feel better. You know, if you go and get some fet or whatever, you're going to feel better. It never entered my head. That is a miracle, an absolute miracle, because I'm the hopeless type of alcoholic. I will drink on anything, any mortal thing. And not once did I drink. And I look through A Vision for You, and it says, yes, there is a substitute, and it is vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last, and the most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus, we find the fellowship, and so will you. That's what kept me sober as well. I had a God of my understanding. I had a fellowship of people around us in Alcoholics Anonymous who were there, who picked the pieces up, who were there constantly on the phone, ringing us, taking us to meetings, doing whatever they needed to do. Them people stood by me through thick and thin. And I was fired up, you know, as I got through all the grief and things like that, my imagination did become fired up. And it took me on a journey again. And as I say, like last year, going through the steps again, that fired us up again. You know, this program isn't about going through the steps for me once and that's it, I'm complete. It's about recognizing where I'm at in my life and when things are changing, and do I need a new, you know, do I need to go through the process again? And I do. You know, last year when I went through it and I look at them, it says, you know, life will mean something at last. Life is the most precious thing to me ever. It really, really is. I was this alcoholic who was, you know, it tells us in the doctor's opinion that with a hopeless variety, that we, you know, just that alcoholic torture, that not wanting to exist. And now I absolutely love my life. I don't exist anymore anyway. I live. You know I can see a future. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I can see a future, and I know it's going to have its ups and downs. There's going to be sad parts of it. There's going to be happy parts of it. There's going to be boring parts of it, you know, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's my journey, and this journey has just been an absolute miracle. And I think another thing that I love within the A Vision for You is where it says the answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. My house is in order. It's not perfect. Absolutely far from perfect, but it's in order. I know what my priorities are in life today. You know, I know that my sobriety, my recovery has to come first without a shadow of a doubt. My main priority in life now is to be of purpose to God. It's to be of service to God. It's to be an agent of God. It's to have that reliance upon God. He has to come first in my life, and always has for a long time now. And because of that, I have a relationship with two beautiful girls in my life now. You know, my daughters and me are the closest you ever get. And we go off to conventions and we do shares together. And, you know, I was saying to Lisa before the meeting started, the beauty of it is we can sit there and share about what each other have done and how we've made each other feel. And there's no resentment there. There's no, you know, Mum, you were like, this is an alcoholic. And yeah, well, you were like, this is a crackhead, or you were like this and you done that. There's none of that. That forgiveness is there. That forgiveness is whole. That love is whole. Them principles are there. We can understand these principles. We have honesty with each other. We can have conversations, we can have arguments, but we don't hold them over each other. You know, we find forgiveness in them arguments. I look at the bigger picture as well, and I'm blessed that I work in 12 Step as well. I run a supported housing project, and so I'm around all my staff are 12 steppers. I'm around newcomers constantly, all day, every day. My daughter's partner is in the fellowship, so my son-in-laws are in the fellowship. My God squad are there. I have all these blessings around us today, which I see as family, because family for me today isn't about blood. The reality is, when I look at my blood family, I have my 2 girls there now, and I've come from a big family, but like I say, a lot of the family turned their back on it. So I don't have that blood family there today. I lost both my parents. They're not there. So the only blood family I have is my 2 daughters, but I have a big family. I have a huge family, and my family is within this fellowship. It really, really is. I have numerous people where I can pick the phone up at any point that I like. I have people from across the world who I'll turn to if I need to speak to them. I constantly keep in touch with people all the time. And one of the things I'm going to end with, excuse me, is when my mum passed away, the week before she died, I was 3 years sober. And we get on about what's important to us in life, and materialistic things become irrelevant. They really do. Like I said, I ended a relationship and walked away with a few black sacks. I didn't even have a home. So one of the most important things in my life is a card what my mum gave us on my 3rd birthday, and I have had this card ever since, and it is it's the most precious thing I have ever had in my life. And I'll not read it all, but this is just kind of a snapshot of what you can get, what you gain when you're in recovery. If you have that reliance upon God, if you go through this program, if you practice these principles, this is coming from a woman who 3 years prior to that had said, I can't do this anymore. You're on your own. I love you. And when you've stopped, you can come back. But now I'm walking away, because she couldn't be around that pain anymore herself. And this is, one of the things she says is, to my dearest daughter, Angela, I just wanted to let you know how very, very proud we are of you on reaching your 3rd anniversary of sobriety. You will never know how proud we are. You've proved to everyone what a really wonderful person you are, not only with your family, but with your life and your job. I couldn't have gotten anybody better as a daughter. Keep going and doing as well as you do, and always remember, I love you. And when I got that card, I've never ever felt anything like it. It was just the most probably one of the most emotional days of my life. And I'll keep that forever. And my daughter keeps saying, and I'll keep it after you, and blah, 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 blah. Because them are the promises, them are the principle. When I bring these principles into family, that's what I gain back. These are some of the things that we gain back. And it's just an absolute blessing. It really is. Anyway, I'm going to end it there now. Thank you very much, Lisa, for having us along. I do appreciate it. And I'm sorry, but I will be on the go now because I have to travel to work, but I'll still be on. I'll keep my camera on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Angela. Do you know what? Your story's so heartfelt, and then just the final icing on the cake with that card from your mum. And I'm truly, blessed that you shared that with us. And I know I can hear it, how much it means to you. And it's just beautiful. It really is.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Reco12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Now time for some questions. And wow, as well, 19 years, what an inspiration. And your journey is so interesting and amazing, in the fact that this is a family disease. And I love how you say you really do put the stamp on. It's that connection with your higher power, whatever you may call that. You know, your connection with God is, and I can hear it, it's so strong. Has that improved over the 19 years? You know, what is your practice looking like on a daily basis of how you keep that connection so strong?
Thanks, Lisa. So over the years, it has changed massively, absolutely massively. I think when I first came into the fellowship, I had this belief in God. So I believed he was there. And then as I've gone through, I kind of found this trust in God. But the icing on the cake is when I find that reliance upon God. And that's the difference for me. And I don't know when it came or how it came, but it did over time. I wasn't one of these that came in and, you know, had that reliance upon God straight away. It took time, it took growth, it took connection. And for me, I've never been one that when I look at step 11, sort through prayer and meditation, I love prayer. I can sit and pray, no bother. I'm not good at guided meditation. I never have been. I'm not the kind that likes the guided meditation. So for me, step 11 for me, sort through prayer and meditation, improve that conscious contact with God, is all about change. You know, when I'm sorting through something, I'm looking through something. I'm not looking at the same thing 24/7. So I'm not going to say the same prayer 24/7. I'm not going to go on, you know, right, get on my knees and pray, or don't get on your knees and pray, or do this, or do. I go where God takes us, and I do what God wants us to do. So at the moment, when I'm getting up on the morning and I'm doing that, you know, looking at what's ahead of me day, blah, blah. I don't have set prayers that I'm saying at the minute. I just come downstairs, I sit in the quiet, and that's my meditation. I like to sit in peace, and I'll sit in quiet. I'll invite God in. Ask him to come in, and then I sit and I just talk to God. I'll just say thank you for whatever, or it's just whatever comes into my head. I do that with God. Whereas a couple of months ago, I was in this structured routine where, right, when you go to bed, get on your knees, do this prayer, do that prayer, do the other. So I can always tell when I need to change it. And that for me is what step 11 means. Sort through prayer, look through, have a look, change it, do what you need to do to make sure that connection stays there. But for me, it's all in the pause. At the moment, that's where I'm at. It's all in the pause. I can just stop and invite God in, and that's it. And then I go from there with him.
I love that. Yeah, real reliance. There's a difference on the faith and then really trusting and really handing over. And, you know, myself, I can feel when I start meddling and interjecting, you know, my little plans and ideas. And yeah, I love that. And do you know what? I grinned when you were saying, you know, with your children and practicing the principles in all our affairs. And that's when I do struggle when it comes to my kids. Principles then, especially, you know, for you said at the beginning, you know, it's still, you know, wobbly and before they come in the fellowship. Did you really struggle with the principles then when they were still in active addiction before they come into the fellowship?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute there. Absolutely struggled with them. How am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to show love? How am I supposed to be honest? Because I would allow that humiliation to come back. Sorry, I've got a granddaughter in the back of the car shouting, "Grandma, Grandma." So yeah, that humiliation would come in, and I would take on what they were doing. I would take on their humiliation about being in the fellowship and about being in addiction. Sorry. So yeah, it was very, very hard at first, but staying connected meant that I could eventually bring them principles in. And I think, you know, the program isn't for me about practicing. It says practice the principles. It doesn't say be perfect at the principles. And that's something that I have to remind myself of. So I'll practice the principles, but I don't always get them right. Definitely not.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to remember that. Yeah, and that awful period when, do you know what a lot to go through with bless your mum and then your brother and then the friend and then losing your dad as well. With so much going on then, was there ever a lack of, did you have any resentment or pull away from God throughout that time, or what, or did you lean into God more through all that?
So at that time, that's when my reliance came in. That's when I found reliance. I used to believe, I used to have the faith, and that was when I knew I needed reliance upon God. Because at first I was one of these that would think, well, why does God take good people? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? And then I was told, God, when God puts us in this planet, he gives us self-will. And what we do with that self-will is up for us. And, look back on that, my reliance grew upon God because I knew at that point, I think that's when I fully took step 3. I think that's where, even though in my head for the 3 years, I took step 3, I'd made the decision and I was building that relationship with God. I think at that point, that's when I fully took step 3 because I knew if I didn't, then it could have gone any other way. But like I said, I never, ever once thought of drinking or using. So the reliance had come in, the faith was there, the trust was there, the belief was there, but the reliance actually came in at that point, and that's when I built that relationship even stronger. And step 3 became deeper, step 11 became more important, step 6 and 7 became more important, and 12 with the principles became more important.
Hey Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Reco12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Reco12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Just magical, isn't it? How this program just blows my mind how it all works, doesn't it? If we work for it. And I'm going to ask you one more question because I'm mindful you're there going to work. And I grin about this because I just know what my family's like. And because you are all in the program, do you, because you probably, I find myself talking about the program a lot, or not so much about the program, but I'm talking about the we speak big book, don't we, a lot. Do you, with your family all being in it, do you, Alec, say, right, enough big book talk, enough stroll tapping, or do you say, right, let's just have times where we don't talk about it, or do you just, again, rely on God and let the flow go with the flow? Do any of you ever go, let's just stop talking about big book for once?
You've kind of hit something that's just happened yesterday. I got wrong off my daughter because she said, I don't want a 12-stepper all the time. I want a mum sometimes. And I was like, but I am a 12-stepper. That's what I do. I'm not. So, yeah, we've been getting into trouble off our Olivia. Our Olivia, my youngest daughter, seems to be the more grown-up one. She kind of sees things before me, which is crazy, but it does happen. But, yeah, it can be hard because... And like I tried to, because she did say to us, Mum, I want you to be a mum sometimes, not just 12-step talk to us all the time. And I said, it's not that. I can't separate 12 steps off because I have to live this program. You know, we have to live this program. And the point is, sometimes our family are not going to be happy with us talking about it all the time. And we do have normal conversations, you know, and we go out for food and we enjoy ourselves. And, you know, we always up to something, me and the kids and everything. But the reality of it is, I can't not talk this program because I live it. And I can't not talk the principles or the steps or anything like that. So, excuse me. So, yeah, we do get into that discussion now and again, and we do try. But again, it's progress, isn't it? Not perfection.
Yeah, that's what you took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly. It is just a learning every day, just a learning curve. And that's why, thank God, it is progress, not perfection, because I don't always get it right. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Angela. I've really enjoyed listening to you. And it's so important talking about the family, and because they are such a huge part of it. And I love when you said, you know, at the beginning, that paragraph about despairing wives and children, you know, that really hit home with me. You know, when I'm, you know, as you said it, we think it's just affecting me. And then when my eyes start waking up and I start saying, God, look at the harm I've caused so many. But that's the beauty of this program. We can start putting it right, and we can start seeing and keep practicing at all these things. It was great. So that was just a great Reco12 speaker meeting for all addicts and their loved ones. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have any other questions, please consider joining our WhatsApp community by sending an email to reco12pod@gmail.com and joining our community and ask those questions. If you'd like to be a future speaker on Reco12 Afro-Euro, please send an email to reco12pod@gmail.com. And if you've not yet rated and reviewed the podcast in Apple Podcasts, please go do so now. It's a great way to work step 12 in sharing this message with others. And I invite you all guys back next week. We have another great speaker. So now we're going to hand over for one last bit of service to Angela, who's going to close us out on a prayer of your choice. Angela, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you for asking us along. And there's my lovely friend Lindell on there as well. You need to get him along and do it. She's fab. Anyway, we'll go. Can we lead us? I'll lead us out with the wee version of the Serenity Prayer. What is the Serenity Prayer? I can't even remember it. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm having a right morning today, Anna. I am having a right morning.
There is one who has all power. That one is God.
Yep, he's with us.
There you go, God now. Oh, keep coming back, guys. Come all the way in, sit all the way down, and let's treasure this road of happy destiny together. Work it, you are worth it.
Thank you,
Angela. Thank you so much, darling.
Thank you.
I could listen to you all day, honestly. I'm going to start ringing you up. Say, Angela,
just
my
ring
family
and
is driving me mental.
Yeah, just ring and go, Angela, how have you messed up today? Because then I'll give you loads of examples of how I've messed up, and then you'll be fine.
I love that. I love that. No, do you know what, Angela? Because I said to you before, two of my elder children, and they're so in the madness, and I've got that thing I keep wanting. Do you know what? Funnily, before I got onto this, to speaking to you, I was actually thinking, do you know what? I'm going to ring him up and I'm going to tell him, let's do the 12 steps. But I can't do that, can I?
God's journey. God will get them.
Yeah.
Yep,
and I keep focusing on helping. When I'm sponsoring and I'm helping other youngsters. Well, the youngsters, I say he's going to be 30 this year, but when I'm helping others, I'm helping them, and then leave God up to help him mine, isn't it? Total reliance. Tough, though, isn't it?
Yep. Find that reliance. We have to. Oh, God, yeah. And I had to teach, my sponsor taught me that I know nothing. You know nothing, so stop pretending you do. Because it is pretending, it's all false.
Yeah.
You know, I'll sit there and think that I know everything, and the fact is I know nothing.
Yes, and that's what I got to keep remembering.
Yeah.
Get out of the way, Lisa. You know jack shit.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Don't take it on. But do you know what? I laugh at myself a lot because when in hindsight, it's a great thing in it. But when I look and think, I was such a control freak, and the whole thing was an illusion because I was never controlling anything. I was just driving myself into the. I was exhausted.
Yeah. Oh,
trying
yes.
to make people behave the way I wanted them to. And when they didn't, then I was paid right off with them.
We suck the life out of ourselves. We don't need anybody else to do it. We do perfectly well on our own.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to get off, Lisa.
Yes, thank you so much, Angela. I really loved listening to you. It was great.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
See you later. Bye.
Bye. Did any of you guys there want to speak or have got any questions?
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much for the meeting. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All the recordings I did put in the chat there, all the links and stuff, all the recordings are put on the Reco resources. If this one will be on there probably in the middle of next week, and then all the others are on there. They're great resources. Noodle It Out with Nikki and Justin, that's a great one. And then also there's the Roundtable where they go, line by line through the big book. That's with David G, Justin and Nikki as well. It's all there if any of you guys want any of that or want to...
Thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure. Okay, if no one's got any other questions, I will shut down the meeting, guys. Thank you for being here. Okay. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.